I frequently get the question, why is it that we have a comprehensive final exam in AGEC 350? The answer to that question is because it's all connected, right? We have a map here of AGEC 350. Here are all the concepts that we're gonna deal with during the course. And as you can see, there's a lot of arrows, there's a lot of circles, but they're all connected. So how is this class going to work? Well, we're going to start in the center with these core economic concepts. We're going to focus specifically on basic concepts of benefits, costs, and when you take benefits and you subtract the costs, you end up with net benefits, and that's what economists call surplus. And that's going to be the real focus of our evaluation of what is good and what is bad in an economy. Now, of course, when you're talking about a box of cereal or something like that, it's easy to talk about what's the value of that. You just look at the price. But when you're talking about market resources, let's say a pollution or something like that, we're going to have to think about non-market valuation. And we're going to look at three different techniques that are used to do non-market valuation. Costs are always in terms of opportunity costs, and we're going to focus on that throughout the course. And then when you take those two together, you can frequently do sort of project analysis and what we call benefit cost analysis. That brings us back to a critical difference between private benefits and costs, which accrue only to an individual, and versus public benefits and costs that accrue to society as a whole. And if you're talking about environmental resources, clearly a lot of the benefits are falling not just on one person, let's say the person that creates the pollution, but the person who suffers from the pollution. That's going to be everybody. A critical basic core economic concept is the distinction between total benefits and total costs and marginal benefits and marginal costs. And what we mean by total is if you've produced this many units of a good, what's the total cost to get there, or what are the total benefits that are generated by that. The marginal is what's the cost or benefit of one additional unit. So in this case, we've got a graph where we see the total benefits going up, even though the marginal benefits are going down. And that's going to be a key distinction that you're going to need to become comfortable with during the class. An important concept that we're going to come back to throughout the class is the idea that incentives matter. Unless you have strong incentives, your policies are going to get messed up, and you're not going to get the outcome that you desire. All right. So one of the things that we're going to think about a lot is what are the characteristics of efficient property rights. What we mean by that is that if a good is transferable, if the right to hold that good is enforceable, and if the benefits and costs are exclusively accrued to the individual that holds the good, then we get efficiency. We get what we call market success, all right? And the market will achieve a socially efficient outcome. On the other hand, if any of those are not satisfied, that's going to end up with market failure. We're going to focus a lot on market failure that results when exclusivity is not satisfied. That is, when the benefits and costs do not accrue just to the person that owns the resources. This leads to two types of classic market failures, and we're going to sort of break them down into two categories: public goods and externalities. And that's going to take us to the general category of environmental economics. Environmental economics, we're going to focus on problems like air pollution, water pollution, climate change. Why is it that we don't have socially efficient outcomes when we have air pollution? Well, we don't have socially efficient outcomes because we don't have exclusivity, and that means we don't get to we're not going to maximize the net benefits to society as a whole. There are solutions that economists focus on in terms of how we might resolve these problems. All the way from regulations, tax and trade, cap and trade, or tax and subsidies, cap and trade, and bargaining are some of the solutions that economists have proposed and policymakers use to achieve regulation of these environmental problems. All right, so that You can see that we've sort of gone over the bottom right part of this graph. Now we're going to take those core economic concepts and we're going to apply them very briefly to the population problem. And I think you'll find that that's an interesting, different little connection to economics that you might find a little bit surprising, and I always find is fun. Then we're going to switch back over and we're going to look at resource economics. We're going to look at renewable resources like water and fisheries. Again, always taking those core economic concepts and applying them to those resources. So we do the renewable resources, then we do the non-renewable resources, oil and minerals. Now, if you're dealing with renewable resources, we have to come back and introduce one more and really actually challenging concept from that core set, and that is the issue of time, discounting, and present value, because we need to be able to talk about how benefits and costs that happen at different points in time can be put together. And discounting and present value techniques are what allow us to do that. So that brings us back to the whole picture, and we've got one more little piece that we need to deal with, and that's going to be recycling and waste management. And again, we're going to take those core economic concepts, look at recycling and waste management, and think about how does economics help us because it helps us understand how incentives are created. And sometimes the incentives that are created in our policies are what we call perverse incentives. They lead to outcomes that don't necessarily happen or achieve the goals that we want them to achieve. So for example, you might have a policy that seeks to reduce waste, but it actually ends up creating a bunch of other problems, maybe even increasing waste. So we've got the whole picture, everything's connected, and that's why we have a comprehensive final exam in AGEC 350. I hope this helps you see the connectedness across the entire class, and maybe you might want to come back to this video later on during the semester and see how everything really is connected.